Hey everybody, we are about to do a video on veins. So we looked at this model last time. This model had an artery in the middle and a vein on each side. I know this is a vein because there are valves. Valves are necessary in veins because veins are low pressure. Veins are low pressure because they are farther along in the pathway from the heart. I also know this is a vein because of its thin wall. Thin wall over here on this vein as well. The artery has a thicker wall because arteries have higher pressure, because arteries are going to be closer to the left ventricle to the pumping action. I can see my three layers, of course. My tunica interna is the orange one on each of these guys. The red one is my tunica media, which is mostly muscle. Remember, my tunica interna is simple squamous epithelium with a little bit of connective tissue underneath. And I also have my tunica externa on the outside of each of these, anchoring them in place. All right, so we've done those three tunics. We did the valves. We can just zip right through this. Here's the real deal. Okay, here's an artery. Got all three of its tunics. We looked at this one last time too. Tunica interna, tunica media, tunica externa. Here is my vein up here, thinner wall because it's got lower pressure. Tunica interna, tunica media, tunica externa. All right, let's talk veins. Yeah, so going directly into our heart, we got our superior vena cava, we got our inferior vena cava. We also have our four pulmonary veins, two on the right, two on the left. Of course, there's a superior and inferior on each side. And remember, my pulmonary veins are my weird ones. They are weird because they are oxygenated. They are veins, of course, because they are going to the heart. So, we got a nice picture of the chest right here. Do I want to do this one first? I'm kind of thinking I want to do this one right here. All right, maybe this one. I don't know. I'm going to do these out of order. Okay? So, I want to start in the fingers. In the fingers, I got digital veins. Digital veins are going to combine to give me this superficial palmar arch here. The superficial palmar arch is going to then give rise to two superficial veins. One on the outside, number 4 here. One on the inside, number 3 here. The outside one is called the cephalic vein, which is like the word cephalic means head, but there's a mistranslation of an Arabic word, and so it's got a bad name because it obviously doesn't drain the head. But it is the lateral superficial vein in the arm. The basilic is the medial superficial vein in the arm. And eventually, we see them both emptying up here into the axillary vein. All right, so those are some superficial veins, but I've also got deeper veins. In my forearm, I've got a deep radial vein, and I got a deep ulnar vein. Notice how they're colored a little lighter to represent their deepness. There we go. And the two veins, the radial and the ulnar veins, they are combining to make a brachial vein, which is also deep. And the brachial vein is joining up with the basilic vein. In this case, these two are joining a little bit before the cephalic to make that axillary vein. Now we know the axillary vein becomes the subclavian vein because we knew the subclavian artery became the axillary artery. So I do see my subclavian vein right here. And now I want to backtrack. All right, here's that axillary vein. Here's that cephalic vein right there. So this is my axillary vein right here. And then I got my cephalic vein right there. That's a C for cephalic. And then I'm going to have my right subclavian vein here. I also see my left subclavian vein over here. Okay, got my right subclavian vein right here. Got my left subclavian vein over here. I also see a pair of jugular veins. I got an internal jugular vein and an external jugular vein here. and they're both coming down. And this is kind of variable, like how these three combine. But when they do combine, I get the guy labeled number 6 right here. This is my brachiocephalic vein. Notice how there are 2 brachiocephalic veins, one on each side. We only had one brachiocephalic artery, but we got 2 brachiocephalic veins. They are uniting to make this guy right here. This is the superior vena cava. You know, the heart would be sitting in here, right? And the superior vena cava would empty into that heart. So there's my superior vena cava. Got the inferior vena cava down here as well. I also see a lot of posterior vessels along the ribs, a lot of posterior intercostal veins here. And my intercostal veins are going to go either into this guy. This guy right here is called my azygos vein, and he is going to empty directly back up into that superior vena cava. So he's called the azygos vein. Azygos means like without a partner by itself. So there's the azygos vein. Now over here, I got my intercostal veins emptying into what's called the hemiazygos vein. All right, so I got some good veins going on here. All right, I think we're just about done with this pick. We did these 2 already. Now we've got the head here. So the guy is looking, we're looking at this guy from his right side. Here is his right subclavian vein. Here's his right brachiocephalic vein. And what I'm seeing here nicely are these 3 veins helping me drain my head. There's this big internal jugular vein, the smaller external jugular vein, as well as running through the vertebral transverse foramina there in the cervical region. I got a vertebral vein. So the vertebral vein, the external jugular and the internal jugular are all going to eventually drain into either the subclavian or to where the brachiocephalic is beginning. All right, so we got our different jugular veins, external being more superficial, internal being more deep, draining blood from brain structures, from facial structures, from the eyeball. And we got the vertebral veins sneaking down there as well. Okay, so now let's jump below the diaphragm. We see our inferior vena cava going all the way down here. The inferior vena cava was formed from the 2 common iliac veins. So this is a common iliac vein starting right here, ending right here, and here's another one on the other side. And when the 2 common iliac veins unite, we get that inferior vena cava. Now, the common iliac vein was made from an external iliac vein, which is right here, and an internal iliac vein, which is right here. Of course, the external iliac vein came from the leg. The internal iliac vein comes from the pelvis. As the inferior vena cava travels upward, it gets blood. First, here we see the right gonadal vein. And this would either be testicular or ovarian, depending on the sex of the person. We also see renal veins on each side. Then, check this out, the left gonadal vein empties into the left renal vein, whereas the right gonadal vein emptied directly into the inferior vena cava. We also see blood from the suprarenal veins, again, right side going into the vena cava, left side going into the renal vein. Go up a little bit higher, we got a bunch of hepatic veins that are going to drain the liver. Now, when I look at this, and when you look at this, you might wonder, like, well, what about blood vessels draining the intestines, draining the stomach, and draining the spleen? Well, there's actually a special system going on, okay? So here is a spleen over here. We got a splenic vein running right here. I guess I should do blue, right, when I go on it. Here's a splenic vein right here. The splenic vein is coming over. The splenic vein is meeting an inferior mesenteric vein from your large intestine. Those two are uniting, and they're keeping on going. We've also got a superior mesenteric vein from the large and small intestine, as well as a gastric vein coming in as also. So all of these digestive organs, the stomach, the large intestine, the small intestine, plus the spleen, all of their blood is being drained into this blood vessel right here, number 5. And this guy is the hepatic portal vein. And this whole connection, like all these guys together, is called the hepatic portal system. It's a system because it's a bunch of blood vessels. It's hepatic because it's going to the liver. And it's portal because, we're carrying blood to the liver. And the idea is I need to send the digestive blood to the liver so that the liver can do any filtering of toxins, poisons, pathogens, etc., and any modification or storage of wastes. Plus, remember in the spleen, we're going to break down red blood cells, we're going to get iron and bilirubin. Those have to go to the liver for processing, storage, or disposal. So this is the hepatic portal system. We've got blood vessels from the spleen, stomach, large and small intestine, all uniting to make a special vein called the hepatic portal vein, which drains into the liver. The liver modifies that blood. Then hepatic veins, which I see a little bit of up here, are going to drain into the inferior vena cava. All right, good. Let's keep on going. I think we're done with the abdomen. Yes, we are. We're going to work our way down the leg. I'm going to actually jump down and start at the toes here. I'm going to start at the bottom of the foot here. On the bottom of the foot, I've got some plantar veins down here, medial and lateral. They're coming up. They're giving rise to my posterior tibial vein running along the back of the tibia. I also see a fibular vein coming in as well. I'm going to see an anterior tibial vein come in too. And I get behind the knee here and I got the popliteal vein. Meanwhile, going up the inside of the leg, I got this vein called the great saphenous vein. As we're going to see, it is really, really long. That's why it's great. It's also very superficial. That's what the word saphenous means. If I look here, I see some digital veins for my toes. I see a dorsal venous arch. And now I really see that great saphenous vein going up the inside of the leg there, going up past the knee, inside the thigh. I also see that anterior tibial vein as well, which is going to eventually dive behind the knee to join up with the popliteal. If I go back up a little more, popliteal vein is behind the knee, becoming the femoral vein, which is rising up the thigh. Meanwhile, the great saphenous vein is coming up the inside of the leg. Eventually, the great saphenous vein is emptying into the femoral vein. Femoral vein leaves the thigh, goes into the pelvis, and we got the external iliac vein, number 4 right there, joining with the internal iliac vein. Once those two have united, we get a common iliac vein. And when the two common iliac veins on both sides join up, we get an inferior vena cava. All right, so we knocked out those leg veins. It's going to be a short video, guys. This is great. So I do have labeled pictures of all the models here. So make sure you go through this. Not every vein I mentioned previously in the pics are going to be on the models. So make sure you realize which ones we can see and which ones we can't see. Like, for example, we see a cephalic and a basilic vein, but not a radial and an ulnar vein, because radial and ulnar veins were deep. Just little things like that to bear in mind. So we're going to go through all these, take a look at all these guys here, all the models, take a look at all of them, go to Open Lab, study, and study some more, keep studying, and you'll do great on this upcoming exam. All right, shortest video ever. See you next time. Bye.